Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is season 5, episode 22. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This week I'm talking to Soledad, or Sole, who lives out near Milan in Italy. Sole is an instructor of Kundalini Yoga, and we talk about how that affects her misophonia reactions. She actually uses it to help people in Italy cope with misophonia. We talk about a lot more than that, though. It's always fascinating to hear people all around the world talk about experiences that resemble our own childhood memories and ways of thinking about and coping with misophonia. Sole has some really wise and thoughtful things to say about how it feels, how others make us feel, and how we make others feel. I have a link to her website in the show notes. It's in Italian, but you can use your browser to translate it for you if you like. Feel free to join the conversation. Remember, you can shoot me an email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast. I sometimes also check the Twitter account at Misophonia Show. You can also actually message from within the Misophonia Podcast app. Yes, there is one, and I will get your messages there. Thanks for the incredible ongoing support from our Patreon supporters. If you feel like contributing, you can read all about it at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. And one of the best ways to actually help get the word out is just leave a quick review or rating wherever you listen to this show. It helps feed the algorithms that elevate this podcast. All right, I really enjoyed listening back to this one during editing. Here's my conversation with Soledad. Sole, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Adil. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So, you want to let us know kind of where in the world you are roughly?
Okay, right now I am in the outskirts of Milan. I live in Italy, close to, I say outskirts of Milan just to have an idea exactly where I'm located. I'm closest to Switzerland, but yes, I'm still in Italy. I am Argentinian. I grew up and I was born and I grew up in Argentina, but I have some Italian roots. So that's why I am very connected with Italy.
Oh, okay, great. And outside of Milan, you said you've been listening to the podcast by the beach over there. I should start asking people to kind of send in pictures of where they listen to the podcast. I think that'd be an interesting
yes.
thing to post.
I have some pictures actually, because while I was listening to your podcast, I was actually in Rome because I have a second house there, and of course always in the outskirts of Rome, not by the beach side, but close to the beach. And I always was walking and listen to your podcast. So sometimes I stopped and have some pictures, and then I continue walking and listen to your podcast. So I have some pictures actually.
Oh yeah, if you want to send them to, it's like tangent, but yeah, if you want to send them to, I'll be happy. I can even post it today, and I'll try to ask other people to send theirs. I always like to see where people are, because you know Misophonia is everywhere. So as you know, so and yeah, tell me maybe a little bit. It sounds like you do some interesting things out there. You want to tell me kind of tell us kind of what you do for work, or for a living.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm an ex-flight attendant. I was a flight attendant. I worked as a flight attendant like for 15 years. Yes, that was my job. It was great it's a great job for a misophonic, actually. And
I wouldn't think so, but I'd love to hear about that later. Yeah.
Yeah, actually it is, trust me.
Okay.
And yes, and then because of family reasons and because life, I stopped flying. I was not into flying anymore. And I had my bachelor degree in political science, actually international political sciences. And then I start practicing Kundalini Yoga, and then I become an instructor of Kundalini Yoga. So right now, if I have to say, what do I do for living? Okay, I am a Kundalini Yoga teacher.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. It's a very interesting journey there.
Yes.
And so, well, I mean, the obvious question might be kind of like, yoga relaxation obviously is kind of great for misophonia and calming us down. Stress is a big exacerbator. Was kind of that, arriving at this part of your journey in any way related to trying to deal with misophonia?
Actually, it didn't. I didn't start practicing yoga because of misophonia. I started practicing Kundalini yoga because I was dealing with a very complicated situation in my family, and I was really going mad, even more crazy than I really was. And I now I laugh, but it was a very very dark times back there, and I really need something to work with my anxiety and my anger. I was really really angry. Actually, because of misophonia, I think we are all very angry deep inside, and we keep this anger really buried within ourselves, and then I guess it comes out. But of course, this was a different situation. It was really difficult to deal with. And I started going for psychological meetings. Sorry, I know it's not the right term, but
Like a therapist or something?
Yeah, exactly. I went. Yeah, exactly. I went for therapist because I really didn't know how to deal with my anxiety, basically, because at the end of the day, it was a very high levels of extreme anxiety that it was really driving me crazy. And I don't know, it all happens. I didn't have any control of what happened next. I guess I met the right people, and I eventually found myself practicing Kundalini yoga, and I started practicing Kundalini yoga, and then eventually I start noticing that without looking for changing something of my misophonia, which at the time I didn't even know it had a name. I start feeling some changes. I start feeling differences. I start feeling different. So it was the beginning of my journey with the yoga, I have to say. Of course, my high level of anxiety decreased noticeably. And I start dealing with my complicated situations in different ways. It is, of course, it didn't happen from morning to evening. It was
It
a
took a while. It
process.
was a process. Yeah. Did it,
Yes.
so it helped your, and that's great to hear that it helped your other anxiety. Did you notice it start to also kind of affect your misophonia, maybe, and kind of like how you're able to kind of recover from triggers?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of this happens eventually, not immediately, but I started noticing that I didn't react as bad as I reacted before. I had very bad responses, I have to say. I had some times in the past that I really reacted, of course, when I was alone, because I was conscious that I was going out mad, but I really need to break something or really punch doors or throw something in the air if I had some strong trigger. And thanks to the practice of Kundalini yoga, I didn't have that feeling anymore. I felt the trigger because I still feel it. Let's be honest. I'm not
Right.
cured, of course, but it's a different way of dealing with it. I have all the I'm very conscious, and my instinct that before was really out of control, it's controlled. I can rationalize and I can control my reactions when I have a trigger. And also, I have to say I didn't gain any new triggers. So this is something which is actually great, because I heard it's very common. When you grow up, eventually you start gaining new triggers, and this
Oh,
is, I
yeah.
guess, is something very common. And in my case, thanks God, I have to say I didn't gain any new triggers. They are all the same, and actually some triggers are are softer than before. They don't have that strong impact on myself as I used to be. Of course, it depends of my day, because some days, you know how it is. Sometimes when we are stressed or we are in
Less
some,
sleep, or,
you know, so it depends. But we can say that overall, I have a very new control on my triggers. So I still get triggered. It's not like I do not. I still have my beautiful waxed earplugs that they are they're part of myself. They're part of my
Yeah, all right.
body.
Yeah, for many of us, earbuds and headphones are just another limb or organ. Do you want to describe
Yeah.
Kundalini yoga a little bit? Because so obviously a lot of us know yoga, but we might not know anything beyond like downward dog.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, actually, I hear a lot about meditation and yoga, and I honestly, now that I have the experience, and actually I become also an instructor of Kundalini yoga, it's very different from what we usually think, because sometimes yoga meditation, it is thought as something like, okay, yes, for stress, to deal with the stress, to relax, but it is, trust me, it is really way more than that, because it's actually now scientists are calling meditation in general neurotraining, because
mhm.
actually it's a training that you do. Kundalini yoga in itself is a very complete form of yoga. It has been taught at the end of the 70s in the West, because before it was kept secret for traditional and custom things back in India. And the master who brought these teachings into the West, which his name was Yogi Bhajan, he started teaching this particular yoga, and he said that it was going to be really, really helpful for these times, actually for this Aquarius time, which is usually called after 2012, which switch different era. Okay, I don't want to get very technical in that, but actually what we are living now, it's sort of understood by the old masters that were going to happen. And in fact, when all this pandemic started, I was like, sort of, this is what I read in the Kundalini yoga
All
instructor
right.
manual. Yes, it was quite interesting. And it's really a very practical, pragmatical way of practicing yoga, because it's not just because you need to concentrate or focus. You just need to follow the guidelines, and you don't have to believe in something particular. You don't have to believe in something. You just have to act, and you have to practice. That's it. And Kundalini yoga, it's what it how can I say, what it really impacted my attention is that it works in a specific ways, like it works on particular states of emotion. It works it works a lot on the brain, on the DNA. It's really, really interesting. In fact, I was really interested in how Kundalini yoga worked from a scientific perspective, and I start looking for explanation. Of course, science is not able to explain everything, but for the past, say, 50 years, there are a lot of scientists who are researching properly the effects of yoga in general and meditation in general, but also in Kundalini yoga, and they are able to explain some of the effects, but pragmatical effects in our brains, the changes that we have in our brains when we practice regularly, of course, Kundalini yoga. And this is what I was starting to compare. What was the part of the brains involved in misophonia, and how Kundalini yoga worked. And I start of course, I'm not a physician. I'm not a scientist. As I said before, I have just a bachelor degree in political science. So
Well, you're a
I'm
scientist in a
not.
way, but yeah.
Oh, well,
Right.
thank you. I try because I like to get informed. I like to research also, and I said, okay, so this could work. And some of the exercises, meditations, I proved it on myself because I started practicing like for 40 consecutive days or 90 consecutive days. And in fact, they had an impact on myself. And they really have, they make the difference. And you don't have to think that Kundalini Yoga, especially Kundalini Yoga, is something like it will relax. Yeah, of course, it will work on your parasympathetic nervous system, and it will chill you out. It will cool you down, but the effect, it's really more profound, honestly.
Oh, interesting. And do you do any virtual teaching? In case anybody listening is interested, or
Yeah,
is it
yeah,
something that you have to do in
actually.
person?
Well, I do virtual teaching. Now I created a website, but it is all in Italian because I saw that in Italy we have very little places to refer to when it comes to misophonia. Unfortunately, we don't have that much. Those resources as you have in English language. So I decided to create it only in Italian. So I created a website which is called Misophonia Consapevole, which means conscious misophonia, which is, I think the name says something about it. No, it's like you are being conscious of
Right.
misophonia, and you try to find ways to deal with it. It's no longer just to rant about misophonia or how bad is this situation with
Right. Yeah, that's part of the.
misophonia.
No, it's very similar goal to this podcast. It's yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd love to hear rants too, but yeah, it's more about being conscious and kind of like looking backwards and looking deeper and looking to the future. That's great.
Yeah,
I'll definitely link to your website for sure.
thank you.
And have you found other? I'm curious, like how is Italy for misophonia awareness?
There is another website who informs about all misophonia world, world, let's say.
Yeah.
But there are some Facebook groups, of course, but there is a small association, but I don't know how, to what extent they are being active. Yeah, but I research a lot, but there is not that much actually, and people. I usually try to. I created also a Facebook group, also with the same name, Misophonia Consapevole. And little by little, people is coming.
Find out about it.
There are another Facebook group of misophonia in Italy, but there is not that much involvement. I don't know. It's not the same as I saw in Facebook groups from other countries, because I also sign up to other misophonia groups from other countries. There is very, really little information. I'm trying, in fact, with my website, I'm trying to spread awareness. I had created also some guides to inform also physicians, because even as we know, doctors are not aware of their existence, unfortunately.
Right.
And here in Italy, it's even worse than in the States or in England.
That's
really,
got to be
really,
pretty bad
me.
if it's even worse than here, right?
Yes, it's really worse, really, really worse.
How is Italy for like general mental health awareness, like being able to like talk about this stuff, or even like we'll probably get into like if you've mentioned misophonia to others, people take it seriously, or how do they how do they think about mental health stuff like this, especially unknown stuff?
Well, yeah,
Not just
I
doctors, but
can.
in general.
In general, yes. Well, it depends. I think it's the same as in everywhere in the world. Actually, it's like you can find people who are okay. Yeah, I heard that I have a friend who had that, or yes,
Right.
they had the same reaction. They are maybe curious about it, but it
Yeah.
depends. Some people is like, because I also read posts from other misophones, as you say, misophones in Italy, and they had the same issues as everyone in the world, that people doesn't believe them, or they believe
Mm-hmm.
that they are just spoiled or nervous or stressed,
Right.
or
Right.
same old story.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Then maybe do you want to how did do you remember like your earliest days with misophonia? Like, what were your first triggers, and how did that all get started?
Yeah, well, you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, because I have my earphones. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, yes, I don't know if I touched them. I did a strange noise. Okay. Well, actually, my oldest memories is I was really young. I think I was around 11 years old, but I cannot say for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it all started with my father eating on the table. He was really,
Classic. Yeah.
yeah, he was really passionate. Let's say he was really passionate about eating and speaking while he was chewing his food. So
Well,
I cannot
Italian food is
say.
really good, and Italian, families are
Yeah, but
very
actually,
chatty.
actually, yeah, actually, you have to contextualize this back in Argentina, because it all started
Oh,
back in.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and you imagine it was all back in the 80s. So no internet, no information, misophonia, no clue
Mm-hmm.
about it. No
Mm-hmm.
one knew about nothing. So I was really clueless also, because I was hearing my father chewing, and I was really desperate. And then it started with my father. But then also my mother started really triggering me, and I had also the problem with the pronunciation with the S word,
Oh, yeah.
whatever. I had now I don't have that anymore, so that's a good thing, the pronunciation with the S. It was
Mm-hmm.
really killing me, and it was really, really. I have to say, it was really hard, because I didn't know what's going on. It's something that really, um, as young as you can be when you are 11 years old, and something that really makes you freak out. And I was the only one, and my parents were really clueless. They were looked at me like, say, like, okay, Sole, but I don't know what you are so nervous. Why is that? And I didn't know how to explain. And I
Mm.
remember the funny thing is, like, I was developing unconsciously the coping skills that are now widely known, which are mimicking. I was a furious mimicker, because I really need, yes. Still nowadays, sometimes I have to hold myself, because sometimes I have the instinct to mimic, especially my husband. But I can cope with that now with the mimic, because I understood that actually it doesn't make things better. But when I was young, I was really, you couldn't see me, because I was really desperate mimicking. And I was eating on the table. I lived in a very small house. The kitchen was so tiny that we didn't even have a table in the kitchen. So we just
Mm.
eat in the living room. And my mother, at some point of time, she was fed up, and she was eating standing in the kitchen, and I was eating alone in the living room.
Oh, she was fed up with your reaction.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
yeah, it was too much. It was too much. She didn't know what else she could do,
Right.
because sometimes I was actually carrying the things in the kitchen, and then I brought the table on the table, and with one hand I was covering one ear, and with the other I have yes, I hold the fork and start eating as fast as I could, and I put, of course, the TV on. Yeah, I was it was a really stressful situation.
Yeah.
And I was only child also,
Mm.
so my parents were like, okay, what's wrong with you? They couldn't even understand. They try, I guess, to some extent to help me, but I understand them back in time. They have no instruments to know or to search or in
Yeah,
some way
when
to
if the
understand.
doctors don't know what it is, then that's kind of a lot of times your only way to get information. There's no internet, and
Yeah.
like you said, and no friends and family aren't going to know about it, so you're kind of totally in the dark. So they just didn't know what to do. It's not like they were kind of antagonizing or just they weren't like making mocking you or anything or making you
No, no,
feel
no, no,
bad.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. They were actually, I think they were scared of me. No,
Yeah.
but no, no, no. They were not. No, no, they were not antagonizing me. That they were sometimes they were fed up, which now I can understand.
So you didn't
But
have any siblings, but how are
no.
you doing at school?
Well, I have to say that I was a really, really lucky girl because when I was young, my triggers were mainly my parents. So I managed to have a really normal social life.
Hmm.
It was really strange that something in my social life triggered me. The only thing I had a serious issues was like getting on the bus. If someone, of course, we know if someone is chewing gum,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mentioned that. That was a problem. So, and back in the time, I didn't have this access to to the headsets and the
Right.
and,
Walkmans and earbuds and headphones.
yeah,
Right.
no, we didn't have that. We have the cassette. You remember? I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
if you remember. Okay.
Cassette Walkman, Sony Walkman, of course. Yeah, those things are
Yeah, that
expensive
was.
now, but
Oh,
yeah, they're vintage. So, anyways,
vintage, but at the time it was really expensive at least for
yeah,
me. Back in
yeah.
Argentina, it was
Now
not
they're
that.
even more
It's
expensive,
like
but yeah.
yeah, so it was very difficult to have one of those. So that was one of my problems actually when I had to travel on the bus, but still it was not really a serious issue. And honestly, I don't remember honestly being triggered by someone outside my house environment, to be honest.
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
And then as you got old, yeah, basically as you got older, when did things start to kind of like at some point really kind of proliferate?
Well, actually, I start noticing that it's especially, for example, with my closest friends.
Mm.
If we have for example, with my friend from my whole life, we had a vacation. We went together for a vacation, and we were sharing the room. And she was at the time using brackets, and we were sleeping, and she was doing some strange noise with her brackets, and I was really going mad. And okay, and that was the first time. I think I was 16 or 17 years old, and I think that was the first time that someone outside my parents triggered me. And
Do you mean
then
your braces, like on her teeth?
yes,
Or
yes,
okay,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I pronounced them
Oh, that's
wrong.
fine.
And yes, and then I noticed that later on, when I lived with other friends, especially, for example, when I was older, like 25, 26 years old, and I lived with a dearest friend. Also, she had a dry mouth, and
Uh,
she was really triggered because dry mouth is one of my worst triggers. and she was really triggering me. And I explained to her, but that at that time I didn't know about misophonia. I just knew that sound really freaked me out, and I explained to her, and she was really, really really compassionate. I have to say I was really, really lucky with my friends, and she was trying to avoid, or if I said something, she would drink water immediately, because she said she noticed that I was really, really uncomfortable with the to say uncomfortable, not to say, and then eventually, as I said, my job experience as a flight attendant really helped me, because you are in an environment which is already noisy. You have the engines in the aircraft, and you also work with different people, so you don't work all the time with the same people. So you change colleagues the whole time. So you don't have actually the I don't know, at least in my experience, I don't know, maybe there is another flight attendant who suffers from misophonia and has a different experience from myself. But in my case, I have to say, I didn't even remember that I had that weird thing while I was flying. I didn't have any trigger at all, even with passengers eating. I didn't have any. The problem was every time I came back home, because I also when I was 25 years, I left Argentina and I went to live in Qatar in Middle East. And I started. I had a flight experience also there, because before I used to fly also in Argentina, and then I went to live there, and I also different. How can I say, different context, also different colleagues with different customs, because we had, when I flew there, we were like 60 different nationalities. So you know how it is, how it goes. We have all different ways of eating, to say.
Yep.
But still, I didn't have any issues with that. Honestly, it was every time I came back to Argentina at home, I was like, here we go again with these mouth noises, because that was my thing, mouth noises.
Right. Yeah. Now that I think about it, on a plane, I mean, yeah, it's so loud that you're not going to hear people eating generally. I mean, even in the Misophonia, the podcast app, I have a whole background sound you can repeat of 737, because it's just noisy. But visual triggers, I was wondering if maybe, looking at your passengers, if you were triggered visually at all by watching them eat their peanuts.
Yeah, but I didn't have visual triggers at that time. Actually, the visual triggers actually came later. When I saw someone bringing their fingers to the mouth, that was not really appreciated. But it depends. In my case, it always depends on the relationship you have with me. Because nowadays, if I see someone, a stranger one, who brings their fingers to their mouth, I'm not happy, but I'm not triggered. But I'm not happy, okay? But I'm not triggered. If I see my mother bringing her fingers to her mouth, that's a really serious problem, serious issues, and you have to stop doing that immediately. You know how it is.
Yes.
So I think they are now also researching, I guess, these differences, no? Because I think it's very common, because not all the people triggers us the same way. So I guess this is
very odd. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's animals will do something that doesn't trigger somebody, or kids. Interesting. So then, okay, so you're a flight attendant, you're not getting triggered, then you'd come home and you'd get triggered. I guess. Well, when did you find out then it was a real condition? Were you doing Google search?
My God, I can tell you. No, it's 2016. Oh, beautiful year.
Not too long ago.
Yes, because I have this dear friend of mine, Maria. She came once. I said, like, Sole, look at this article. It was a Spanish article, actually. it describes what you explain me, what you have, and say like, oh my God, yes, it's me. I'm not the only one in this world. The typical, I was always almost about to cry because, when you find out that you are not the only crazy freak who has this thing, it's like, oh my God, this is me. And it's a condition. I can't believe it. I was so happy, strangely happy. Of course, how this is a strange happiness. Yeah, I was really, really, really happy to know, especially that there are more people that they have the same suffering, that I was not the only one who had this weird thing, and I could explain also myself, because there was like, I think we all have this thing, like this sort of conflict with ourselves. Because you have something that you cannot even explain to yourself, because it's not rational, it's not normal. You don't see other people, or at least back in time, you don't see other people, or you don't hear other people. It's like a headache. People have headache. Everyone has a headache sometimes. But this one, no, you don't hear, because even people, maybe they don't even say that they have it, because they are embarrassed also to say, because in some point, we all find it a little bit irrational. I don't know. So there are a lot of emotions there also. I think this is misophonia is something like it really makes life even difficult for us, because there is a condition, we have these symptoms, but on top of that there is all these emotions that we feel strange, we feel alienated, isolated, or I don't know, we cannot explain. You say, I have this diagnosis, I have this. No, we don't. So, or at least until we don't find out that it is a condition. So I think this creates a self-conflict with ourselves, a non-acceptance, or I don't know, there is, I think, a lot of psychological things going on that is not created they're not part of misophonia as symptoms, but it creates it because of society, or because we don't have the right instruments to find out as normal pathologies, normal conditions. You go to the doctor, you get the diagnosis, you can do this or you can do that, etc., etc. It doesn't happen with misophonia, and I think this really is really devastating for us.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of layers. Like, it's not well understood, so then it just makes it easier to dismiss. Plus, it's too similar to a normal person who's quickly trying to understand it. They just compare it to people who are annoyed by sounds, and that's just basic annoyance. So they don't really understand, the crazy fantasies and
yes. That also, it really, I don't know, because maybe it's really also difficult to speak it out loud and honestly. The thoughts that we really get in our minds are really cruel, are really criminal. And I said, my God, I'm not a criminal. I swear to God, I'm not a criminal.
Yes, you're not criminal to think about things, only to act at them. So as far as I know, we're very good at bottling it all up. But you're right, the thoughts can get kind of crazy. And so that's great. So when Maria gave you the article, did you then obviously I'm sure you researched it as much as you could. Did you then share it with your family?
The first thing I did was to write a letter to my parents, because at that time I was already living in Italy, so I didn't have my parents. My parents are still living in Argentina. So I wrote a letter and I printed some explanation about the misophonia. I went to search for misophonia also in Spanish, which I found information also in Spanish language. So I created this nice envelope, and when I went back to Argentina to visit them, I gave them these letters. with all the explanation and asking them for forgiveness. And now we know that I have this. It was not something like it didn't have this condition doesn't have anything to do with my feelings for them. And I really wanted to make that clear, because I think misophonia, unfortunately, the way we react, we make people think that we really hate them, because at the moment when we are triggered, we really, I think we convert, we become something like a monster or something like that. Or at least my mother said, "Oh, you look like a monster when you look at me.
Yeah.
When you give me that glare, you look like a monster." And this it's really bad, because it's like, no, I still love you, but I'm sorry, I cannot do anything. But imagine in the past, you don't have the resources to explain why is that happening. So when I found out about misophonia, one of the first thing I did was to write to my parents. And I think I don't know, I felt like the nicest thing to do was to write them, and to write a letter and to make them know that I really loved them, that they were the best parents in the world, and that I really sorry for all the moments, miso moments, but it was not in my control. It was some part of my brain that was reacting. So they sort of understood. My mother, maybe she understood, but from understanding to accepting, there is a different.
Yeah, she couldn't quite, right. Okay, it took maybe a little bit of work, or maybe it's still taking some work to get to.
It is still taking, yes.
Yeah, is it because of all the remembering all the? I'm sure all the moments and all the baggage.
Yeah, I guess that we also have to, as misophones, we also I learned this lesson. We also have to understand that other people, despite they are our parents or friends or strange people, they have their own issues. So we cannot expect people to understand us immediately, or that they can deal with it like if nothing, or okay, like if they are all psychologists, because they have their own issues, they have their own problems. Maybe their problem. My mother didn't have my mother had a very complicated early years of her life, so she had, of course, some child issues, which maybe it's difficult for her not to feel hurt by whatever reaction of people, not only by myself. So I learned that I also have to be compassionate. I don't have to ask for compassion for myself, but I also need to be compassionate to other people, and I have to accept that not everyone will accept or will come to terms with this thing, or will accept these things, or will understand what's really going on in my brain. Not everyone is able to understand that, and I have to accept that, and I have to move on. Okay, so this something, I think it's something very important for everyone, for every misophonic people. You don't have to expect everyone understands it, and not because they are bad or they don't want, or they are just they have, as we have our own limitations, because we all have limitations. There are people that they have their limitations by themselves, so we have to be we have to accept also that, and we move on. We cannot get obsessed. Okay, no, they have to understand, because no, you have to move on and do the best you can to live a happy life. It depends on yourself. So, for example, in my case with my mother, sometimes, especially when I go back to Argentina, now it's been like 2 years. I don't go to Argentina because of the pandemic. But every time I go there, it's an issue because maybe when I make the point that maybe she's triggering me, and she really doesn't take it that well, and she mix the things because she say like, oh, come on, you don't see me, you barely see me, and when you see me, I trigger you. It doesn't have nothing to do that we don't see, we don't see each other frequently. It's a trigger. I cannot see you
Right.
maybe for 5 years. When I see you again and you do that, you trigger me. It's my brain. It's not myself. But I need your help, your collaboration, just to avoid that. But
Right.
it's difficult. It's difficult. And every time I go to Argentina, sometimes it's demanding and it's complicated. But I understand, and I understand.
Well, at least you wrote the letter, and that's a huge step, I think, on your part. And I'm sure they appreciate that as well, that you took the time to write that, and on paper too, not just in an email.
Yeah. No, on paper. I wanted to do it on paper, because I think it's something that stays different from an email.
And maybe moving on to like your own family life in Italy. How has that been? At home. I don't know if you have kids or not, but how's it kind of been on your home turf?
All right. Well, my husband eventually he started triggering me also.
So not at the beginning, but it came up. Okay.
Yeah. Eventually, he started triggering me. So at the beginning, he didn't trigger me. He didn't trigger me at all. I can say like for the first 5-6 years we were together. Yeah, it was beautiful, a paradise. I was so happy. And then eventually I said like, oh no, he's triggering me also. No.
How did it start?
I think it all started, he smoked. And when he was smoking, there was this weird sound that was like, oh, what are you doing? It was like that. But at the time, I also smoked. So I was doing the same noise, if you want to say. But, of course, done by him, it didn't, it was a trigger. And it was also difficult for me to explain to him because at that time I didn't have any idea about this condition. So I tried to understand, I tried to make him understand, but it was not that simple. And then when also in 2016, I ran to him. I said like, oh, listen to this. You have to really listen. And he was like, oh, okay. And from that time, he really got really supported. He really, really supports me. Sometimes it's difficult for him, and I totally understand because it's difficult sometimes to be around me because maybe it's like, okay, you're doing that noise, maybe you should drink some water. But now I also learned the ways to express myself in the kindest way I can. Because I think this another thing that the practice of Kundalini Yoga allowed me is like to not be that instinct, to not react instinctively or react with
or
reactively,
anger. not like take some time to
exactly
think about it.
Yes, and I managed I think to the best of my possibilities, of course, to explain myself like, okay, maybe you can drink some water, maybe just to ask it in a nice way, like, I have this great feeling, I also, make fun of myself.
And very important.
I don't know. I try ways, and he usually is really, really he really supports me, and he understands. Sometimes he's fed up, and I totally understand he's fed up but I have to say, most of the time I'm wearing my wax earplugs, which are great because they are very soft and they don't hurt the ear. So I managed not to be triggered that much, honestly.
Yeah.
And
Are you?
then,
Mhm.
yeah, tell me.
Well, no, I was going to ask about your earplugs. Are they? Is there a certain brand that makes those wax earplugs, or did you
Uh,
um,
yeah,
get
there's
them
some.
made custom?
No, 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 no. They are. I buy them here in Italy in actually in the drugstore. They are
Okay.
widely. Yeah, they're widely sold. I don't have the brand here, but
I've seen the
I
foam ones, yeah, but wax
no
ones, yeah.
no
I'm
foam.
curious about.
They don't work
They
for
don't do anything.
me.
Yeah.
No, no. It's
Okay.
the same as if I don't wear anything.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people using foam, and I say like, oh my god, you really managed to block
Well,
the
they probably
triggers
don't have
with the.
anything compared to, yeah.
Uh,
Other than not having anything. I mean, it blocks something, but it's tough to make it it's tough to make
yeah,
those work. I know some people who have very unique um kind of ways to put them in your ears to maximize the sealing, but I don't think everybody does that. So
no, yes, because I tried with the foam, but for me it doesn't work at all. It's the same as if I am not wearing any. And
mhm.
then I found this wax. I also find them some sort of wax back in the UK some time back, but they are not that soft,
Mm.
so they are not that comfortable. But these ones that I think they are produced, they are made in Italy. They are they're great,
Okay.
actually. Yeah. In fact, most of Italian misophones wear these ones.
Okay. Do you know the brand name?
Yes.
Is it an Italian name?
Okay, let me see, because I guess I have them back here. Okay, yes, I have this in the box. Oh, the name is Calmore. And
Gilmore.
actually, they're
Okay.
made in Switzerland. Yeah, they're actually made in Switzerland.
Okay.
Works earplugs for noise protection. Yep.
Interesting. Well, maybe send a
Um,
picture. If you send a picture of your location or whatever, or your beach walk or something, send a picture of the earplugs, and I can kind of like
earplugs.
share it to people too. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, interesting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a good coping mechanism. Yeah, it's good to hear about good earplugs because a lot of people end up just putting music in, assuming that earplugs are not that good. So it's good to hear about the good ones because sometimes you don't want music always in your ear.
No, it's
Um,
too much. Even with the earpods are, of course,
yeah,
okay, they're nice, but after a few hours, it's like you are in pain because
right.
they are, I don't know, in my case, they are really uncomfortable. But I keep saying the best, of course, we give immediate coping instruments such as music or avoidance also, because in my case, for example, when I enter a room, for example, for me, one of my biggest challenges is the waiting room, because waiting
Yeah,
room, yeah, it's usually very silent, and you can hear the tiniest movements or noises. So I always stay outside. I usually get this, oh, please, ma'am, come, have a seat. No, I'm fine standing out there. So
right,
now with the pandemic, it's nice because waiting rooms are over, but I think they will come back sometime. But
right,
at least here in Italy, there is no more waiting rooms, because you have to wait outside, which for me is great because I don't like to be seated. Of course, if I have to sit, I always have my wax earplug or my music, and this is the way to cope. But I always keep saying, since I started practicing yoga and Kundalini yoga, the best way to deal, I think, for now, until we don't get something more concrete from science, the practice of meditation, in my case, I will say not yoga, but Kundalini yoga.
Kundalini yoga. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that
Yes,
more. Yeah.
yes,
Um,
because it really helps. Of course, for example, if you are triggered by the sound of breath, Kundalini yoga can be really difficult because it has,
Yoga is a lot
some
about breathing. Yeah.
yes, but at the same time, the nice thing about Kundalini Yoga is like it mixed a lot of elements, such as sound. When I say sound, I say like mantras. And for example, also movement. Of course, sometimes it's repetitive movement, or maybe a position with your hands, the breath, or the focus of your gaze, of your eye focus, and it interconnects and coordinates all these elements to create a specific state. But at the same time, there are some exercises or meditations that they do not employ all these elements. Maybe they just employ mantra, or they just employ
Gotcha.
sound, or they just employ a static focalization, or you have to stay in one position. There are really you can find different. There is so many different meditations. It's not like always the same old meditation that you have to sit and no. They're very different meditations. So this is one of the things I was trying to create also in my website, to offer some meditations depending of your trigger. Of course, we know that misophonia, the triggers may be infinite because we do not all have the same triggers. So it's very difficult to make happy, to everyone be happy with something, because maybe it's all very articulated. But as far as I could see, breath or repetitive movement or sound are main triggers. And for example, in my case, I'm not getting triggered by anything within the Kundalini yoga practice. So I have to say I'm very lucky. But for example, if you are triggered by breath, you can totally avoid breathing exercises and just do another type of exercises, just as
Okay.
movement or just vibrating a mantra. And they are really, they have a lot of efficacy. They really work. So it's not like you are
Not like you
not
have to do, yeah, not like you have to be around any breathing or whatever. You can pick and choose something and it'll be effective in the Kundalini
exactly.
yoga. Huh.
Yes, yeah. So this is, I think, is nice. It has a real. Unfortunately, even Kundalini yoga teachers, maybe they are not that informed about misophonia. So if you go for also to a
Except one.
Kundalini teacher, yeah, so at least for me, maybe some other Kundalini yoga teachers back in Italy, they know it because I spread the word a little bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
try to
yeah.
spread as much as I can, but it takes time. It's not immediate. So I think with the help of science, and also with the help of everyone like you with the podcast and other people with the association, Misophonia Association, I think we do all little, we do our little job, but I think then it will have an impact eventually. And I think misophonia will become more well known.
Yeah, we're
And
moving
we,
forward. Right, right, right. We're slowly moving forward. And at some point, we got to hit some critical mass where it'll be more mainstream. Maybe we just need a Barack Obama to admit he has misophonia or somebody famous, and that'll do it.
yeah, yeah,
Any,
exactly. But tell me.
no, no, no. Well, no. I was gonna say like we've already. It's like an hour has flown by here.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, give you a chance to. Is there anything else you want to share with people? Maybe even in Italian or Spanish, for people listening. I know you've shared a lot, and yeah, I'm going to be googling a lot of stuff that you talked about, including Kundalini yoga. I want to put your links in the notes, but yeah, I mean, yeah, anything else? You'd like to
Well,
share?
yeah. Well, I just don't lose hope.
Hmm.
this is the main thing to say. Don't lose hope. I think I heard, in some of your podcast, I don't remember, of course, the name
Yeah.
of the guest, but he says something really nice. It's like, there is a way to cope with it. It's not like we are alone in this. We can cope with this, and how can I say? We don't have to fall in which is very normal, in the ranting, because ranting doesn't help. Positive thinking, although it might be seen as something, let's say, stupid, but it's not stupid at all. Positive thinking helps a lot because actually it's a real exercise for the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially when we have negative thoughts, I'm going a little bit outside of yoga because it is yoga, but it is also not yoga. We don't have to fall in the mind trap, because unfortunately with misophonia we fall in the mind trap, and we can deal with this. There is a way to deal with this, and this is an opportunity. This is what I was thinking about. Some guest you had, and he said this is an opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity. Misophonia, as hard as it can be seen as an opportunity, in reality, it is an opportunity to grow, to evolve. Because maybe because of misophonia, we start looking at ourselves in a different way. We focus deeper in ourselves, and taking down in that road, we manage to see ourselves and to gain more knowledge of ourselves. And maybe, I don't know, I see it like as an opportunity to grow, although it's really hard, although it's really painful, but it is still an opportunity. So be hopeful, and we can do this.
Yeah.
And this is what the main thing I wanted to. Don't lose hope, and don't fall in depression. It's useless. Yeah, you can manage. You are stronger than that. That's it.
No, that's great. That's a great positive. Like to end on a positive note, because as you said, yeah, it is kind of hard for us to maintain positivity. And
Yeah.
as you were speaking, it just struck me that us kind of spreading the word is we're more likely to meet other people like us who have positive energy. And what better way to get over or deal with misophonia than to hear positive words like yours from someone who has misophonia. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm sure many people appreciate it. This is great, Sole.
Thank you, Adil.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you, Sole. Really inspiring conversation and great food for thought. If you liked this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website misophoniapodcast.com. It's even easier just to send that message on Instagram at Misophonia Podcast. You should follow there or on Facebook, and on Twitter we're Misophonia Show. You can support the show by visiting Patreon at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.